5,000 years ago, a group of people did something no one had ever done before. They wrote it down. Not a picture, not a symbol scratched into bone, an actual written system, precise enough to record a debt, powerful enough to describe the movement of stars. And then they vanished, not conquered, not destroyed, just slowly erased, buried under sand and silence for so long that when archaeologists dug them up in the 1840s, nobody could even read what they found. The people who built the foundation of human civilization had been completely forgotten. Their name was Sumer, and you have never heard of them. Think about what your day looked like today. You woke up with a concept of time. You probably checked a number, the hour, the date. You may have read something. You followed a law without thinking about it. You used a wheel. Every single one of those things was invented in one small patch of land between two rivers in what is now southern Iraq. The Tigris, the Euphrates, a flat, hot, difficult place to live. And yet around 4,500 BC, people began gathering there in numbers the world had never seen. The first cities, not villages, cities, with streets, with markets, with strangers living next to strangers and somehow not destroying each other. How do you make that work? You invent government. The Sumerians created the first known legal code in history. Not Hammurabi. That came later, and Hammurabi borrowed heavily from what already existed. The real origin was a Sumerian king named Ur-Nammu, around 2100 BC, who wrote down rules for how people should treat each other. Punishments, compensation, protections for widows and orphans. A civilization deciding, in writing, what was fair. Before that, fairness was just whoever had the biggest weapon. But government needs records. Records need writing. Around 3200 BC, Sumerian scribes began pressing a reed stylus into wet clay tablets. The marks they made were wedge-shaped. We call it cuneiform. It is the oldest writing system ever discovered. The first things they wrote down were not poems, not prayers, receipts. 29,086 measures of barley. Received over 37 months, signed by a man named Kushim. Kushim may be the first named individual in all of human history, and he was an accountant. Here is what else the Sumerians gave you. The wheel, first used not for travel but for pottery, a spinning platform to shape clay. Someone later looked at it and thought, what if we put this under something heavy? The 60-minute hour, the 360-degree circle, both come from the Sumerian base 60 number system. Every time you glance at a clock, you are using Sumerian mathematics. The first schools, the first maps, the first love poem, the first recipe for beer. Yes, beer. A Sumerian tablet from around 1800 BC contains the hymn to Ninkasi, the goddess of brewing, which is also a step-by-step brewing guide. The Sumerians did not just invent civilization, they made sure it was enjoyable. So, what happened to them? This is where the story gets strange. They were not destroyed by an army. They were not killed by a disease. They were absorbed, slowly, quietly, by waves of neighboring peoples. The Akkadians came first, around 2334 BC, under a king named Sargon of Akkad, who built the world's first empire by conquering Sumerian city-states one by one. But even Sargon did not erase them. He learned from them, adopted their writing, worshipped their gods, kept their schools running. The Sumerians were so foundational that even their conquerors couldn't let them go. Over centuries, the Sumerian language slowly died. Not suddenly. The way a fire goes out. First a flicker, then just smoke, then nothing. By around 500 BC, no one spoke Sumerian as a living language anymore. It survived only in temples, used by priests the way Latin was used in medieval Europe. A sacred language no one actually spoke at home. And then even that faded. For over 2,000 years, the Sumerians did not exist in human memory. Their cities were buried. Their tablets were unreadable. Their name was unknown. In 1843, a French archaeologist named Paul-Émile Botta began excavating mounds in northern Iraq. He found walls, carvings, thousands of clay tablets covered in those strange wedge marks. It took decades to decode them. When scholars finally did, they realized they had found something older than Egypt's golden age, older than the Greek philosophers, older than anything they had imagined, a whole civilization that history had simply misplaced. Here is the thing that stays with you. The Sumerians did not think they were building the foundation for everyone who came after them. They were just trying to manage grain, keep track of sheep, figure out how to live next to strangers without chaos. They invented writing because they needed receipts. They invented law because cities get complicated. They invented schools because someone had to teach the scribes. Every tool they built to solve a small, practical problem turned out to be something the entire human species would use forever. They never knew. They couldn't have known. And that might be the most human thing about them. The people who gave us everything had no idea they were doing it.